Hi, my name is Katie Bryant. For the MChat portion of the assignment, my friend Deb and her 3-year-old son Harrison were the participants. Um, Now, Harrison scored a 2. Well, actually, it depends on how you score it. Um, when I looked at the scoring rubric on the assignment page, he scored a 1. And then when I actually went to the scoring rubric on the website, there was an additional question. So I scored it as if he failed, and he scored a 2. Either way, he was very low risk. So there would have been no reason to go back and do any follow-up screening for him. Deb was very confident going into it. She was very willing to participate because she's a diagnostician. So she was more than happy to help, and she knew exactly what the MChat was. So when we began the conversation, I said, "Does MChat ring a bell to you?" And she said, "Oh yeah, sure." So we actually had some very good conversations about autism screening and autism screening in very young children. And I might get to a little bit of that here at the end of this reflection. So what I learned about screening, is that first of all, screening for autism is an extremely general, very generic process. This is a tool that a parent could use if they were concerned about their child. They could look it over and say, is my child displaying these kinds of behaviors or not? Do I need to visit with my pediatrician? I mean, if they were truly concerned, I understand though that this is a diagnostic tool, but you could find something like this on the internet if you were a concerned parent and just wanted to see if your child was displaying worrisome behaviors or not. I learned that when you are screening a child, when you're talking to a parent, you want to be very careful. These tools, they have questions that include the phrasing your child over and over and over, and so you want to put the child's name in. You don't want to be extremely clinical while you're doing it. You want to be very familiar with the parent. You want to make them feel comfortable, kind of laugh a little bit, and focus on the child and things like that. And so we were able to do that. I don't know how I would improve the screening process in the future. I never had to go through this with my son. So I've never had to be on the parent end of it, and it went very well on my end. Like I said, my participant was a diagnostician. She's used to this, and she's done it. Or she's watched it be done, rather. She told me actually in the school district that she's in LSSPs do the bulk of the autism screening. So I'm not sure exactly yet what I would recommend be changed. I don't know. In no portion of the screening tool seemed particularly irrelevant. It all seemed like things that taken together you would need to, let me word this differently, would be cause for concern if your child was displaying several of these behaviors. However, you would also need to keep in mind that very young children display unexpected behaviors, and those aren't always necessarily an indication that the child is developing atypically. Deb and I talked about that. We said, children they do things that are unexpected. They do things that are unusual, and that's not necessarily a sign that the child that there's anything going on. I know that when my son was very young, there was one particular educator who was very concerned for a little while that he was displaying the signs of autism. And I wasn't seeing any of that at all. This educator and I, we talked and we talked and we talked, and ultimately, it never resulted in any kind of screening at all. And looking back, what it leads me to believe is that he was behaving differently in the classroom setting than he was at home. He was very young. He was like 3. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of children. They behave very differently in a classroom setting than they do at home. Obviously, he was displaying some behaviors that were probably being referenced on this checklist. I wasn't seeing any of them at all. And it's not unusual, I think, for a child to behave differently in one setting than another. The only problem I really encountered was trying to figure out how to score it. There's just so much information, and the actual screening tool itself was very busy. And so trying to figure out one definitive way to score it was difficult, but I did. And actually that Excel scoring tool was helpful. So that was my experience with the MChat, and it seems like a helpful, like I said, screening tool, easy to use, way to, like I said, see if a child is displaying behaviors that are something that a professional needs to look more closely at. Thank you.